Good morning, everyone. I hope you had a wonderful New Year's or new decade. So a lot of things have changed since 2010 for me and for my family and for everyone. In the past decade, I have graduated from elementary, middle, and high school. I have gained one bit of wisdom from each of the 52 teachers that I've had, taken about 21,000 photos in 11 different states and countries, and received an unquantifiable amount of love from my friends and family. I also happened to complete my first quarter of college as of December 13th, 2019. So before I moved in, I had a lot of assumptions about myself and how my life would be now that I'm at college and I'm living on my own. I knew that I wanted to have a career in English. I wanted to be a writer or a screenwriter. I wanted to write books like Haruki Murakami and Roxane Gay, or write movies like Greta Gerwig and Quentin Tarantino. I thought internships were just for upperclassmen and graduate students, and that underclassmen spent, just their first 2 years exploring new things, experimenting with new subject matter, taking their required classes. I also thought that research was meant for just STEM majors, and I imagined like all these labs with sweeping glass facades and these massive elephant-sized machines just overflowing with antiseptic modernity. Yet when I came to school and saw just what I could accomplish, I realized how much I'd underestimated college. So many doors opened for me that I didn't know existed. I took Asian American art history, which was like a super cool class. It absolutely blew my mind. I had taken art history before in high school, but I had never been so taken by something that wasn't English. I wrote a 17-page research paper about cultural appropriation in American adaptations of Japanese horror films, which is a long title. I wrote that for my freshman writing class, and even though it was like the hardest thing I'd ever done in my life, it made me realize how much I loved research. These realizations snowballed into my recent application and acceptance into the Stanford Humanities Research Fellowship, where I can participate in independent or faculty-led projects in disciplines like history and linguistics and art. So now I know that research isn't just limited to STEM. With the help of my advisors and the support of my peers, I could be spending my summer working with original Andy Warhol photographic exposures or digitizing medieval manuscripts. All these opportunities were super amazing, and yet it rewrote all of my plans. In my excitement, I didn't realize how overwhelmed I was. Everything I had laid out for myself had suddenly come undone. I felt like I was standing on shifting sand, constantly readjusting with each movement. I no longer knew what I wanted to do. At home, my relationship with my parents also changed. Since I had been gone, we called occasionally, less than I'd like to admit. The Roman poet Sextus said, "Absence makes the heart grow fonder," and I know that to be true. My parents and I have grown much closer. We can confide in each other about our concerns and our hopes for the future. We can watch our favorite shows together. We fight less and stick together more. I like to think that we're best friends. And yet, just like my school, these changes hurt too. When I'm away from home, I find myself missing them more than I ever had. In high school, I took my parents for granted, and only now do I realize what I truly had. And because of my research position, I realized that this might be the last day I will spend with my parents in the next 7 months. Change is something that we all grapple with. We all have desires and doubts, hopes and dreams, thoughts and uncertainties. We all have burning questions that we urgently need the answers to. But those answers might not come right away. They may take months or years or decades to come. But the thing is, they all come eventually. We all have great happiness and great sorrow in our lives, things we wish could last forever or not at all. But they will continue to fill our lives whether we want them or not. We will have many moments of happiness and many moments of sorrow. In his New Year's Dharma talk, Reverend Harada said that every day is a good day. that no matter if you experience good or bad things in your day, in your life, there will always be goodness around you. Change can make you feel your best and your worst, but it's important to see that goodness around you, to experience that good day. College has made me realize that I'm terrified of change. I have no idea what my life will be like 4 years from now. That is so scary. I wonder what I will become, how much money I'll make, if I will be able to support myself, if I'll be happy. But college has also taught me that change is inevitable. It shapes us, shows us amazing things. Knowing that makes me slightly less afraid. I feel I can trust the flow of life, knowing that things will continue to move. I'll never get stuck in time. Someday I will grow up and become someone and get a job somewhere and find where I'm most happiest. Nothing is permanent, and I'm okay with that. Change is something that we can all embrace, and in doing so, we can find deeper happiness and peace with it. Please join me in Gasho. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu.
Please join me in Gasho. Yesterday is history, tomorrow is a mystery, but today is a gift. That's why it's called the present. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Hi everyone, Happy New Year! I hope that your 2020 is off to a great start. I know a lot of us made resolutions for the new year, whether that's to work out more or get better sleep, probably for a lot of high school students, maybe college students, or to be more on time. So today I'd like to share my New Year's resolution with all of you. So every winter break, my family and I fly to Washington to visit family and stay for the holidays. We play games with each other, we go see Star Wars, we eat good food, make mochi, laugh, talk, and enjoy each other's company. This year was the same. The only difference is that this year, like a month prior, I had deleted Instagram off my phone to focus more on studying for finals. For those who might not know what Instagram is, it's a social media app on your phone that lets you share pictures with your friends and family, and you can see like what your friends are up to, and they can see what you're up to as well. You might see pictures of people hanging out, their pets, what they're eating, just what they're doing, selfies, stuff like that. So deleting the app from my phone made me realize just how often I mindlessly picked it up and just scrolled through it. I never noticed until I got rid of it. I found myself automatically trying to open the app every few minutes of my spare time, only to find that it was gone. I realized that just out of habit, I used it whenever I felt bored or I had free time and I was just waiting around. I felt compelled to fill each moment with doing something instead of just letting myself relax and enjoy doing nothing. So before deleting Instagram, I checked my phones. In settings, there's something called screen time, and you can check pretty much how much you use your phone. And I average 5 or 6 hours every day on my phone, which is kind of a lot, because that's a fourth of my day that I spend checking my text messages and scrolling through Instagram and checking my Explore page and just not really paying as much attention to the people and the things around me. So when finals were over, I carefully reinstalled the app, and I told myself I'm going to use it more mindfully because I did miss like seeing my friends and stuff, or their posts. So I did, and I used it a lot less often. Just by being more mindful of how much I relied on it, I dropped my screen time on my phone from 5 hours to 2 hours a day, which is still kind of a lot, but oh, thank you, wow, thank you. Yeah, thanks. So I ended up using my phone a lot less. I carried this behavior into my winter break trip in Washington and found that by simply not checking my phone all the time and just by trying to be more present and focusing on the people around me, that I got more out of every interaction that I had. I had some of the most meaningful and interesting conversations with my grandma when my phone was just away and the TV was off and we just sat down at the kitchen table and talked. I think that being present and having your mind focused on the task at hand can also come in many different ways. So it could be meditation, which is also one of my resolutions. I want to practice meditation. And it can be enjoying another person's company without distractions. I think that it can be, for me, learning a new song on the koto, like an instrument, is a way that I can really focus. Or learning how to make makuzushi with my grandma. Or even taking a hike in the snow with my cousins and having a snowball fight. Living in the moment without replaying the past in our minds or worrying about anticipating the future is hard but gratifying. I think that for me, one thing that distracts me from appreciating the moment a lot is my own inner monologue and my thoughts and my inner critic. And I think too often I get too in my head and too caught up in worrying about how I act and how people perceive me, and if people are enjoying my Dharma talk or not. Yeah. So as I get older, I think that I can appreciate more the importance of being present and how the time that we spend with our loved ones is really special. Just sitting down and talking with someone can become a memory that you'll cherish forever. Maybe you've heard of the saying. This is one that my grandma taught me, called Ichigo Ichie. And it's a Japanese saying that basically means each moment only once, or each moment is once in a lifetime, and so it should be cherished. If we don't take hold of the time that we have with others and appreciate it mindfully, then we're missing out and we're losing out on time that we can't get back. So my resolution for this year is to be more present and more mindful with the people that are close to my heart. And just in general, just all the time, just try to be more present. So I think that for many of us, and definitely myself included, that starts with being aware of how we use our phones. Because phones are amazing devices that connect us to people all over the world. We record our actions with pictures, we Snapchat, we share with friends, we text our friends, we call our family. But they also distract and isolate us from the people that are nearest to us as well. But even more than putting our phones away, I think we have to make an effort to be engaged with the people and the events around us. Though it can be hard to focus our attention on the present moment, it's something that can be improved with practice. And I think that when we do have time to look back and reflect, that we'll find it was worth it. Thank you. Please join me in Gasho. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida.
Good morning. Happy New Year. It's early. So yeah, thank you all for being here, especially the kids my age. I know this is closer to my bedtime than when I wake up over break. But yeah, being back here is really nice after a couple months. And every time I come back here, I think about the first lesson I learned when I became Buddhist here. It's really hard. It's really hard growing up Buddhist. Because growing up Buddhist basically ensures that you're spending most of your childhood around your non-Buddhist friends, explaining to them that your religion is kind of not a religion at the same time. I remember in high school I used to be a fencer, and one of my closest friends there was a very devout Christian. And I remember one very large tournament we had. In the middle of it, we were talking trash to each other. And he eventually cut me off and he told me, "Do you actually care if you win? Because I thought Buddhists weren't supposed to have desires." And so I stood up, looked him straight in the eyes, and hid the small existential crisis he was giving me. And I told him what any Buddhist says when they don't exactly know the answer. And I said, I'm not that Buddhist. But it was a good question. It was a good question and made me wonder a lot because that was one of the values that I definitely struggled with understanding the most out of anything. We live in a world that's driven by incentive. We live in a world where deeply, just instinctually, we have this survival instinct. We continually want things, and we're even told that to a certain extent that it's a good thing. We're told that you're supposed to have goals and things to strive for, to keep yourself going, to be successful, to be happy in which seems almost against what we're told to believe in Buddhism. However, to me it was obvious, at least at the time, that say it can lead to suffering. Desire can lead to suffering. Say, if I desire too strongly to win this tournament and I lose, which I did, I would be sad. But what happens if you accomplish your desires? Do you still suffer from having these strong desires? I never won a fencing tournament, so I didn't know. But years later, anyone who knows me knows that I'm obsessed with taiko, Japanese drumming, and I've probably talked about it every single Dharma message I've given. But for years, because of that, it was my goal to become a leader of my own taiko group. And this year I found myself fortunate enough to become the director of my group in college. But the first several months of being director of this group, I found myself more and more unhappy whenever I was going to practice. And I started to wonder why. This was something that I wanted for years. It was something that I worked countless hours for. So why was I finding myself so unhappy? Was I that ungrateful? Did I want more? I found the experience underwhelming almost. And I didn't completely understand why until I thought about a message Reverend Crane actually gave in our high school Dharma class years ago. And it was actually the idea that it's impossible to define who we are. It sounds like an absurd message at first, but then she asked me, well, who are you? And naturally, I answered, I'm Jeff. I answer with my name, and she says, but that's your name. Who are you? And the question suddenly becomes infinitely more complicated. When I thought back to that, I started to realize why I was so unhappy being director. For so many years, I had this strong desire to become the leader of a group. For so many years, I was telling myself, this title would be who I was. This title would be something where if I had this title, I would be proud of who I am. And nothing could be more wrong. The title was just the title. It didn't matter whether I did or didn't become the director of this group. The respect, the advantages, and all of the things that come with being a director did not belong. It belonged to the title. And one day, inevitably, I would be replaced. And whoever replaced me would take on those advantages and that title. For me to try to define myself by these things felt wrong. And somewhere deep inside, I knew that I hadn't changed a single bit since the moment I was elected. If we go to any close friend, we go to any close family, someone who loves us, and we ask them to define who we are, they wouldn't talk about any of our accomplishments, our titles, or any of the material things that we have. They would probably say something like why they love you, the things that you value, the things that they value about you. They would say something much less tangible and much more complicated than any title or any desire that you could possibly have. It was only then that I started to understand why desire can lead to suffering. If your desires are too strong, they can blind you to what's really important. If you focus too much on the tangible things in life, even if you are to accomplish them, you'll find yourself underwhelmed and unsatisfied because you lost what you truly were inside. When I realized I was no different than before, I became much happier. I still and always will be someone who wants to share what I love with who I love. And becoming the director of this group was just a bigger opportunity for me to take on more responsibilities and fulfill that even. While it's good to have goals and desires, it's important that we don't let it blind us to who we really are and what's really important. Please join me in closing Gashul. If we stare too far into the horizon, we blind ourselves to who we really are. Let us start this new year being grateful for what lies around us. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo.